everyone. You're listening to Michelle Speaks on 180radionow.com, currently heard in over 128 countries around the world, and I'm your host, Michelle Portier, founder of Healing Women, Healing Nations of Northeast Florida. We live in a society that condones living behind masks, hiding who we are and the issues we face, some too taboo to discuss with anyone. You may be worried about being judged or ashamed of what others may be thinking of you. Michelle Speaks not only uncovers it, but we look for solutions to deal with it head on. Stay tuned as we get to the heart of the matter, because if you hide it, you can't heal it. Welcome to this week's episode of Michelle Speaks. If you hide it, you can't heal it. With me, your host, Michelle Portier. Today, we are going to be talking about a very taboo topic, battling with FAD. What is FAD? Fear, anxiety, and depression. I have in the studio today some very special guests, the dynamic duo, Miss Ceandra and David Dilley. So before I allow Miss Ceandra and Mr. David Dilley to share more about who they are, I just wanted to give you a brief intro about this week's topic. The Word of God states in 2 Timothy 1:7 that God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and of a sound mind. Yet many in the world and many Christians battle with fear and depression and anxiety. So how do we reconcile what the Word of God says about it and apply it with what many across the nation battle with, often silently, afraid to get help because of their spiritual beliefs or shame or condemnation on these three topics: fear, anxiety, and depression? So again, for my listening audience, help me to welcome my very special guests, Mrs. Ceandra Dilley and Mr. David Dilley. Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
To be here.
Thank you for all agreeing to come on and talk about this topic. So before we get into it, I would like for you, David, and you, Ceandra, to share with my listening audience, who are this dynamic duo of a couple? Who are you personally? Who are you professionally? And who are you spiritually?
Well, we are the Dilleys. People get tickled when we say our last
name. I like that, the Dilleys.
And what the Dilley-o?
What's the Dilley-o?
There you go.
What the Dilley-o?
So I am the beautiful wife of David Dilley,
And confident. I like that. And yes, she is beautiful for my listening audience.
I am the handsome husband.
Yes, you are.
Now you see why they're such a dynamic duo.
And we are parents of 3 beautiful boys. Hopefully we'll have another little one in the oven, but hopefully it'll be a girl.
Woo! I commend you.
And then that's it.
All right.
But I am a retired Navy veteran, and I am now a successful mom, I would say, a happy homemaker, or CEO.
And thank you for your service.
Yes, you're most welcome. A CEO of Dilley Enterprises, I have 3 employees, and I get to sleep with the boss.
Hey. Well, it doesn't get much better than that.
But I am also an aspiring entrepreneur. I have a business called Inspire for Purpose.
Because I know you, I would have to beg to differ. Not inspiring. You are a rising entrepreneur.
Bless you. God bless you, and thank you. Yes, a rising entrepreneur of my business, Inspire for Purpose. And we'll talk a little bit later about that, later on in the show.
Right. We don't want to give them too much too soon.
And I'm currently serving in Air Force, active duty. Been in for about 17 years.
Well, thank you.
And been 8 locations.
Okay.
And currently residing in Georgia.
Okay. Thank you for your service as well.
Thank you.
And so that's a little bit about who you guys are personally and professionally. Where are you spiritually?
Spiritually, we love God. And when I say God, I have to clarify. So Jesus Christ himself, right? And we know that this is a Christian station, so I probably really have to clarify that. But we love God. And so in my spiritual walk, I have grown eons compared to where I was before. David and I are newly married. We've been married now for a year, going on 2 years.
Right.
So
congratulations. They say the first year is the hardest, so congratulations. You guys made it through that. Yeah.
telling you.
Right.
But God is good. Yes, He is.
Especially for us, everything happened so fast.
Everything happened fast. We met each other, and God let me know right away that David was my husband.
The
he
one.
was the one. And I question that still, because I was like, okay, he's not tall, dark, or handsome. No, I'm just joking. He's very handsome.
Right.
But he wasn't the
your package, your picture perfect package.
Exactly.
What you expected.
And so, but he truly is that, and so much more now. More that I'm getting to know him, but everything happened very, very quickly. And so we got married, we got pregnant, we moved, got a new house, everything, new car, everything was new.
Within a year.
New.
Right.
But it's been a blessing.
Yeah,
It's been
definitely
a blessing.
has.
Good deal. Good stuff. So there you have it. You have a little bit about this dynamic duo, the Dilleys. So we're going to get right into the meat of the topic, which is battling with FAD, fear, anxiety, and depression. And so I know we were talking about it a little bit offline, but what I wanted to start out with for both of you individually and then together, because, you did disclose that, you both have battled with it, and currently, David, you do still battle with it.
Yes.
And I'm sure you do at times. We all do, as I do as well. So what were some of the contributing factors that led to your feelings of depression, fear, and anxiety? And you can both, tag team, jump in,
To begin, I'm a very structured individual, being military and that kind of stuff, having troops that you have to lead and that kind of thing. So you have to put forth a certain face, and I know you've talked about taking off the mask and that stuff. Even in Michelle Speaks, if you hide it, you can't heal it.
Right.
Well, I hid it very well. I even hid it from myself because I really didn't want to know the truth about the fear, anxiety, and depression.
Right. We don't want to face it at times.
And so I kind of knew what it was, but if I didn't say it, then it really wasn't real. If I didn't think it, then of course it wasn't real.
Right.
So coming to terms with saying, okay, what's really going on with me? So I kind of skirted around all the issues. I would say, well, maybe I'm just having a bad day. I'm really stressed out. I put all the other light kind of things on it. I really didn't want to be diagnosed as having depression or anxiety, and definitely not fear, because I'm like, I'm brave. I'm a military person. I'm brave. We go out, we fight wars, we get it done.
Right.
So
that's what we do.
That's what we do. And so I didn't want to put those labels on myself. So some of the contributing factors was, of course, post-traumatic stress disorder, and I know you talked about that.
For those that don't know, can you kind of expound for my listening audience?
So post-traumatic stress disorder is a disorder in which anyone truly can have. It doesn't have, people think it has to be military, with war, related, something, very traumatic happening in that area, but it can be from anything. It can be from childhood, issues, abuse, whatever, trauma, and things of that nature. It can be anything, really. Even some of the phobias that people have, that can be very, very traumatizing. And so mine came from mainly the military for me. Just seeing things and doing things, because I worked in the medical field. And so some of the things that we saw on some of the deployments and things of that nature, it affected me. And so even though you come back after and you do these tests to say that you're okay, and you want to say that you're okay because you don't want it to affect your career. So you do all the things that you need to say. Exactly. So you do all the things you need to do. You say all the things that you need to say to pass these tests, and you continue to work. And David can attest to that, because that goes on with his troops even yet now. And from the duty station which he was before, which is in Daytona Beach, Florida, and he was actually at a aeronautical university, which he was dealing with a lot of students that's getting ready to come into the military to fly these fighter jets and all of this stuff. So he's seen it firsthand.
So he was wearing that mask. Both of you were.
Yes, totally. And so, like I said, if I didn't put a definition on it or define it, even when I went to therapy, I was telling the therapist, no, this is not what's going on, but this is what's going on.
So you were telling the therapist what it wasn't. Right. Okay. So David, can you share with my listening audience kind of what were some of the contributing factors that led to you?
For me, it's... You kind of have to know my life story to really.
You can give us a backdrop.
Dictate. I feel like we're all products of our environment. Based on how we were raised, will dictate how we become adults. So basically, somebody that is growing up in a poor, poverty neighborhood, the likelihood of them repeating the same steps is pretty high, or they basically overachieve, to not live that same lifestyle.
So they become overachievers. Right?
Yes, at the same. So, but it still affects your how you were raised. Yes,
right.
Somebody that was privileged, they basically get everything handed to them. When they get adults, it just passes down. So it's everything, so we're all products of our environment. And for me, I was basically emotionally abused. physical abused and sexual abuse as a child. My mom, back in the day.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
Back in the day, your parents would just, beat the living mess out of you.
Right. I come from that generation.
So like
switch cords, switches.
Now some stuff that she would do, she'd be in jail for now.
Right.
But, and for me, I grew up my whole life fearing my mom.
Okay.
It wasn't necessarily respect.
Not a reverential fear,
no,
but
it was just basically I did things out of fear. You know, so I did things like, I need to do this, because I'm gonna get a, butt.
You don't want to get beat.
Yes,
right?
Yes. I don't take the chicken out the freezer. That's a butt whipping or whatever.
Take out the trash or something.
Take out the trash. It's just, it was guaranteed butt whipping.
Okay.
And for my dad, he was basically emotionally unavailable.
Okay.
So
detached.
Yes.
Okay.
So basically, me being a single child, I basically learned everything on my own.
Okay.
I was scared to go to my mom. I couldn't talk to my dad. And
so you basically had to figure it out on your own.
Yes.
Basically a latchkey kid. Though both parents were there, they were just unavailable. Well, one was abusive and one was unavailable.
And I've even noticed I've learned my defense mechanisms, like whenever I get into like conflicts or somebody starts, oh, you did this wrong. And, they start, ragging on you, whatever.
You become defensive.
I shut down.
He totally shuts down.
Really?
Yeah. He doesn't talk. He doesn't.
And that's out of the ordinary. I would expect a man to become defensive, but you just shut down.
Based on how I was raised, I didn't have a voice.
Okay.
So if I did something wrong, I'm taking a butt whipping, and, I couldn't talk back to my mom because, she didn't allow that, so basically
it just seen and not heard.
So basically that made me become this person that I am now.
Okay.
And I used to think I joined the military for, my country, the flag,
patriotism.
Patriotism.
Right.
I think as I'm going through this spiritual transformation, I think I joined because I needed that direction.
Structure.
Because, when you go to the military, it's like, oh, you go here, do this.
Structure.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I never learned how to be a leader. I learned how to be a follower. When you first join, you're all a follower. They tell you everything you need to do.
Right.
So I needed. So basically, the military became my mother.
Okay.
And
wow.
Through over the years, I started realizing that. So when I was in Foster Roars, I excelled. But when it came time to when I needed to be a leader, I struggled.
Okay.
Because I never had that mentor or that person that would to encourage me and lift me up.
Right. Right.
And knowing that
develop your leadership skills, because we all have them.
Yes. And knowing that about David now, when he shared and opened up and was telling me things, because I would always say, step up, take charge, and he'd be like, well, I don't really know how to do that. He didn't say that, in so many words, but the actions showed that. And then as he became more vulnerable and more trusting and honest with me, he actually verbalized it.
Okay.
So then it's like, okay, now I understand.
So what was that process like for him to be able to get to the point where he was able to share it?
It just took a lot. For me, I'm kind of a no-nonsense person. I don't really talk
that I know,
a lot of things. And so it's just like, get it done. I don't care how you get it done. If you got to beg, borrow, steal, cry, do whatever, bleed it out, whatever needs to happen, go and do it. Just make it happen by any means necessary.
Right.
And so for him, when it was a dark place where all this stuff had to come out.
Okay.
Like I said, everything happened really, really quickly for us.
Right.
And
so a lot of transition.
A lot of transition.
In a short
amount of time.
Yeah.
I had just retired, just got married, got pregnant, moved to a whole new state, So
in essence, you couldn't even deal with your own fears and anxieties.
And then, David has 2 children from a previous marriage, and then here I am with my own child. And so now I'm like, it's a ready-made family.
Instant family.
I gotta, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
I'm here and I can lead in the military, but trying to lead this household is the hardest thing that I've ever had to do as a person. And I didn't have the answers. I didn't know what to do. I was reading books, and I'm always still reading books even yet now. And
then trying to co-lead to kind of mesh that. Right.
And just and I was lost. And I was just in my head. I just couldn't get it together in my head.
Right.
And everything was foggy and cloudy. And I just was like, how come I can't do what I did before? I know all this stuff is new, But, I got, I'm on Google. I'm trying to Google how to parent and do all this stuff.
That's what we do, right? We figure it out.
I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to make it happen. And none of the stuff really worked. I used some of the tools that they gave me and it helped a little bit, but it was like, I have these 3 lives and then my husband too, and trying to figure out how to be this mom, how to be this wife, how to do all of this stuff. I'm the CEO of this family, but this really truly affects people,
right.
These
on
little
top
people.
Of dealing with the fear and the anxiety.
Exactly,
And so how did you find a way to come together to deal with both your anxieties, your fears, and your depression, and then you as well? How did that, in the midst of all of that transition in that short amount of time, how did you guys truly come together?
Well, for me, both my children were from failed relationships.
Okay.
One was from a failed marriage, 5 years, and my other was from a long-term on and off again relationship. And for me, what I noticed based on my childhood, I kept dating. I feel like I said, it goes back to for products or environment. Right. We basically embrace our environment or we hate it. So I feel like I needed to be with women that were basically my environment as a child. So a lot of the women that I was with, were abusive. Okay. My first wife, she was she was physical abusive and she was very emotionally and spiritual abusive.
Okay.
Why did you do this? It's always, putting me down. And I was like, man, can I come home, take off my boots? So I walk in the door, she's like, going at me. And
it was on. Yeah.
So in every relationship since then is basically, it was the same cookie cutter. It was the same person every single relationship after that.
So you were able to identify the pattern of the relationships that you were
and
having.
it wasn't until I actually gave up, stopped caring, and that I actually met Ceandra.
Wow. When you let it go.
Yes. And
because I'm not the norm, I'm not the pattern. No.
Yeah, no.
And my thing was so bad. I would date Hispanic women because the typical stereotype for Hispanic women or Hispanic families is they're based on family. They're all really family oriented.
Gotcha.
And me, I came from a broken home.
So you wanted that family.
So I wanted that family. Right. So where everybody else was chasing careers and chasing certain things in life, I was chasing family my whole life.
Wow.
That's what I wanted. I was chasing stuff that I didn't have. Because to me, a family I felt was going to make me happy inside.
Okay.
And so I had this misconception of, based on the stereotype that I thought, if I date Hispanic women, I get the family that I want.
You've always been seeking and never had.
And basically, it was like I say, it was misconstrued. And so I was looking for all the things I wanted in the right places. And when I met Ceandra, I was like, all right, I finally got this. We're
right,
good.
Right,
we're good.
right.
This thing up and running.
It's going to be peaches and cream from this point on, right?
It was like, I think we were about maybe 5-6 months in. And I was just like, I just happened to go to the gym and I was like, man, why am I still feeling like this?
Right.
I started checking off all the things that were happening in my life that were to me were good.
Right.
And I was like, why don't I enjoy that?
Right.
It was like, it was kind of funny. I would have good moments. It's like we got married. I enjoyed it. I was there. I was connected. But as soon as that moment passed, I went right back to
you went back to that slump.
Yes.
Okay.
When the baby was born, I was he's here.
Yeah, that euphoria.
Yeah. So so it was just like a constant cycle. But a lot of times I couldn't realize that I was in that cycle. It'd be like you be in the cycle, then probably 3 or 4 months later, you're like, oh. That's what I was dealing with.
Because he would literally just come home and it'd be like a deer in the headlights. And you just knew he was just on autopilot. He wasn't there. He wasn't my husband. And I'm like, who is this person?
He was there in body, but not in spirit.
So I had depression too, but I felt like I had to put my depression on pause because his was so much more severe.
Right.
And that didn't make me feel good either. Because it's like, well, who's going, I got to deal with yours and my,
So how did you deal with that? What did that look like for you?
I stepped up in the areas that I needed to step up, but it was only because I was forced to. Because both of us couldn't have been checked out. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Both parents, you've got children to raise here. And so I stepped up in those areas, but at night I'm crying, or even during the day with the kids, sometimes I got to go to the bathroom and I just shut down and cry. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then I was thinking all this stuff in my head, this is a representative that this dude showed me. This is a representative. He done hoodwinked me, bamboozled,
Right. Expound on what you shared, prior to us, prior to us recording.
So, I was talking to God of my quiet time, because I couldn't really talk to David. He wasn't there to give me the support that I needed. And so I was talking to God, and I said, God, I know you said that this is the man for me, but somehow I think maybe, I've been bamboozled. I've been hoodwinked that this is not the person. And this was a representative that you showed me indeed. Right. And lo and behold, David came to me and he was talking. He goes, the exact words, he goes, you think I bamboozled you?
Right. Wow.
And I got a little nervous because I'm like, this dude, is he in my head? Is he like, can he read?
You were like, oh my God, you can read my thoughts.
Exactly. So I'm like, oh, the Lord.
I know the two are supposed to become one, but hey.
But man, right. Took this thing to the extreme. I'm like, but the Lord done told on me. I'm like, God, we was talking in private. You said go to the secret place, and that's where I went. You done told this man on me. But when he said it, of course, in the beginning, I was like, oh no, no. But I was like trying to, get this thing right in my head, and so I was like, oh my gosh, the Lord has told on me, and David knows. But then as David continued to be more vulnerable and honest and forthcoming with me, I was like, it's okay, And I did tell him eventually. I said, I thought you bamboozled me. I thought, everything was all good to go, and then we got married, and then you just was like, okay, now I can totally take the mask off and be, who I am. But
so was that the beginning of the both of you beginning to be able to be really transparent about, the things that you were dealing with, the fear, the anxiety, depression, and begin to work together, or was that?
It was a part of it. I think for me, I think that was kind of the beginning thing, because I was holding a lot of stuff in, and I'm like, if I can't talk to my husband, who can I talk to? Because I really wanted somebody to be open and transparent with and not judge me on anything, and I wanted to be able to talk to him and tell him things and be okay afterwards, not that be lingering in his head and him thinking about stuff, after the fact, just kind of data dump, so to speak, do that unconditional thing. And I didn't know if he could do that or not, that he would hold on to it and have a resentment towards me. And I'm left feeling some kind of way yet again, in my alone time, and feeling more depressed and more anxious and more just fearful of it all. And so I believe that is the starting place for us, in which we began to kind of start to heal. And
so on the other side of that, how did you feel when she shared that with you?
For me, I felt like I had that battered wife syndrome.
Okay.
Basically, I've been in so much bad situations that I welcomed it. And I never really had a voice, so, basically when bad stuff was happening, it was like, I do this and I fix it and we're good. And so for her, with her, everything was all together, so I didn't really know my place. Okay. So when I've been doing something for 30 plus years, I was like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, this is like, it's like you have the strong desire to make her happy and do all these things. But based on what you've had previously, that's the only footprint that you have. My parents, they were in a terrible marriage. So that's all I saw. Everybody, everything that a relationship I've been into was terrible. I like to think I was like, I was collecting myself, I'm a hopeless romantic. Yeah. So I had all these
hopeful.
Yeah, because when we were dating, we would send each other music back and forth. Be like, oh, listen to this music. We just sing songs that would kind of express our love for each other. And it was so fun. Yeah, it was like high school stuff.
But I had all these things in my head, but I never had anybody to give it to. So now that I had this opportunity to give it to, it was kind of like a sense of overwhelmingness, like, oh man, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, it's like, then you want to, because you want to. Well, I think, man, you don't want to, it's, my whole life, man is like, oh, you got to be hard. You got to, you can't cry. You can't show, people your inner side. And, so my whole life has been like that. And I've never known, everybody that I know, they basically get pieces of me, so I like
you compartmentalize.
Yes. So basically I like to think of myself as a puzzle. So I give you a couple puzzle pieces, I give her a couple puzzle pieces,
but nobody the complete picture.
Nobody has a complete picture, but they got together, they can probably figure out the puzzle. So like for me, I felt like I was a representative, and for me, when I'm on this path of rediscovery, I'm noticing stuff. I'm like, man, does she feel this way? I'm like,
So, but you're at a point now where you're able to communicate about it. So prior to that point, when you had bouts of the anxiety or the depression, how did that manifest? How did that manifest for both of you?
Like for me, because I was a single parent for 11, 12 plus years. And for me, I basically was living for my child.
Okay.
I wasn't living for myself. So everything I did, put food on the table, go to work, just make sure he had stuff, everything he needed. And so basically I wasn't living for myself.
Gotcha.
I forgot how to live for myself.
Okay.
As far as, working out and taking care of myself.
Right. So that went by the wayside.
Yes. And to me, that wasn't important. I would just make sure. And I know for shadow of doubt, if I didn't have him in my life, I probably would have killed myself.
Yeah.
Because I had nothing. It's so crazy. Like I would reach out to people and I would give them little pieces, but I wouldn't necessarily come out and say, hey, I'm dealing with this.
Right.
And even like to my mom, I reached out to her and I was like, hey mom, I'm not really feeling good. Like I know You
would always say I'm not in a good place.
Yeah, I'm not in a good place. I'm not in a good place,
Right.
And she kind of just brushed, oh, you'd be fine. Yeah, you'd be fine.
So I kind of want to put a pin right there and go back to what you said. If it had not been for your son, you probably would have killed yourself. And I want to touch on that because I know in my listening audience, there are a lot of people that are in that place. And I can relate to that because when I was in that dark hole, the only thing that kept me going was that I knew that I had to provide for my daughter. And then when she became of age and I got her to that point, I then felt like I didn't have a reason to come up out of that pit or out of that darkness because that reason was gone. I had to take care of her. So for my listening audience, what would you say to that person that is in that place where, I'm staying alive for this person because I got to care for this person, and maybe that person is now to the point where they can be self-sufficient? What would you say to that person to prevent them?
Well, basically everything is perspective. Some people look at a cup as half empty. Some people look at a cup as half full. So it's all in how your perspective and how you look at certain things.
Right.
And so like me, if you go out here and get this degree, it's helping out your whole family. So like. Whereas I feel like, I'm doing this for myself, but it's helping my whole family. So it's like another thing is you can't take care of yourself. You can't take care of somebody else until you take care of yourself. I can't love her if I don't love myself. So and that's the biggest thing. Because I thought I needed certain things to be happy, and that wasn't the case.
Right.
I would tell the people because what about those people that say, well, I don't have kids, I don't really have anyone to live for. People that just don't have family because it's real,
and they're just going through the motions.
We see it every day in the military, and we get a lot of training in the military for signs, things to look for. With possible suicide or things of depression, and how you're supposed to act, in those types of in those situations, and ask those people, what's really going on. And for me in the beginning, because I was depressed before I met David, but it wasn't as severe as David's depression. So I've seen severe depression. I've read about it. You do research and those types of things. And so my thing too was my children. But before I had any of that, I was like, what do I do? And I definitely can't tell my parents. I couldn't tell the people that I was closest to because I didn't want them to look at me a certain way. It is truly a fear that
was a stigma.
It was plaguing me, and fear, I came to the conclusion that fear is going to make you do one of two things. It's going to propel you into action, or it's going to keep you where you're at. And it's going to paralyze you. And I was paralyzed. I could not make decisions, even basic decisions like what am I going to cook tonight? And I would get in a panic, have anxiety about that. Just a simple meal, is the chicken going to be better for me, or is the beef going to be better? Now I know they talk about mad cow disease, but
the chicken
back and forth, the little thing.
And I'm glad you brought that up because that segues right into what my next question was going to be, which was describe what it feels like to battle with fear and depression and anxiety. I mean, even the most basic things become monumental. Everything gets built, and for me, everything got built up in my head. I could not get my head clear. I could not think clearly. So here I am. Then I would start taking things to the extreme, like, man, I might have a brain tumor because this is why I'm not. I mean, we're laughing, but this is serious stuff.
Really
so
serious, But and now when I think about it, I'm like, oh, I was so over exaggerating. But in that moment, in that place and time, it was very real. Driving at a stoplight and then like, oh man, is somebody gonna shoot me? I don't even know why. I used to go to the movies all the time, had no fear, anxieties about it at all. And now I get ready to go to. I'm like, I don't want to go to the theater because people are getting shot up in the theater, and I might get killed in the theater. So it became like, where did this come from? How did I get here? And now I'm trying to go back into my memory banks to say, okay, what took place for me to be here? And some people may think, the trigger? And some people think it had to be something so horrible. David talked about all the abuse that he sustained, and other people have much greater things even, and for me, I didn't have all of that. I had a good family life growing up as a kid, a good career and all of those things. So where did this come from? And as I'm thinking back in my database, And even yet now, I'm still not really clear where it all came from. Right. But I know a part of it was with the military. Okay. And then even in my spiritual walk, as you begin to draw closer with God and you really get into that place, I call it being in a naked place with God, and he begins to show you, and it's not the you that you thought that you were or should be. It's not pretty. And when you're really trying to make a change and you want to be better, and you're saying, God, I am ugly. Like, you don't like yourself. And it's like for me, I felt like I wanted to run away. But how can I run away from me? I didn't even want to think about me. So I would basically watch mindless TV shows or just, just blind humor or whatever, just stuff to try to get away. And it didn't, and so I'm in the mirror, literally, for me, looking at myself in the mirror, physically looking at myself in this mirror. And it's like, I don't like what I see. I couldn't stare in my own eyes for a number of seconds,
you know what that made me think about? What I shared with you right before we went on the air, the mirror.
Yes.
I look in the mirror and who do I see? I don't know who to be or what is me. And so when you said powerful. that was it in a nutshell.
Yes.
And so when you got to that place, what was the thing? What was the turning point to help you come out of that? Because, and I hate to say this, but it is a stigma in the African American community to admit any kind of weakness, especially fear, anxiety, mental illness, anything like that. And it's all connected.
Yes.
So
the turning place for me it's like, I just can't live like this no more. You really do get to a point in your life where it's like, I'm just sick and tired of being sick and tired. I didn't like the way that I felt, and I was feeling like this for a number of years and still not telling anybody, still not even going to talk to anybody. Right. And so I finally said, I need to go and talk to somebody and get some help. And so I did in the military, and I'm scared out of my mind, but I was like, I cannot allow fear to keep me here. It was so funny. I was in my car. You can't function. I remember as clear as day. I was in my car.
And this is prior to you meeting David.
This is prior to me meeting David. Okay. I'm in the military, still active duty. And it was Joyce Meyer. She was on. And she was literally seeing the stuff that was in my head about the fear, and she was like,
that's how you know it's God.
That's how you know it's God. And she was just talking, God, using her as a conduit and just speaking. I was like, I gotta do something. That was it. And I said, you know what? Hell or high water, I'm gonna do it. I did it scared. I did it trembling. I did it shaking. I went to the therapist's office, and I really didn't get to where I needed to be. But even that first visit, because you're getting to know them, and you really don't trust them either. And for me, I'm a fixer.
Like, so trust, what is that?
Okay, and so as the therapist is talking to me, I'm saying, well, who's here for you? And I'm trying to be her therapist.
You were deflecting.
Exactly. And they say, do you see what you're doing? And I knew it, But it's like, okay, yeah. So it was that moment where I said, God, I was really honest with myself. And I said, God, I need to change. I can't live like this, Lord. If people see me and they look at me as strong, and now if I tell them they're going to look at me sideways, I can't have that, God. But God, I know there's a bigger purpose, and I know that there's people lives that need to be saved, and I know that there's people that haven't been through some of the hard things, some of the trenches that people go through. But I said, I'm going to step out, and I'm going to share, God, even in this moment, being in this moment with you right now, sharing and letting people know, because people are going to know.
Because it's real.
It is,
and people are struggling.
And sometimes you still don't want people to know,
But I thank you for the transparency, because I know that you are touching someone that is going through that very thing right now. And your ability to be so transparent about it, that's part of the journey to healing, because if we hide it, we cannot heal it. So thank you. And it's okay to be emotional, because this is a sensitive topic, but it's a topic that's real, because I really believe that we are saving lives by having this dialogue, this open dialogue, especially within the African American community, because we've struggled and suffered in silence for so long. And it's so wonderful to see you being so supportive of one another, because I know that you battle with this too. And so this is just a perfect example that we can battle with things and we can struggle with things, but we don't have to do it alone. Like, you guys represent that unity that we all need to come to.
And truly knowing that people do care, because my thing is like, people really don't care. This therapist is in this job because it's a paycheck, and a lot of people are in a lot of careers and career fields or jobs because it's a paycheck. The chaplains in the military, you think they're these really spiritually guided people. It's just a paycheck, And so I really didn't think people cared. And now that I know that people genuinely care, and people are out there really, really hurting, and they need to hear even what I have to say, my voice doesn't does count. It does matter.
You have a
super
voice.
Important. It's super important.
We all have a voice. And so there was something else you wanted to say, David.
So for me, like my issue was I think of myself like a dog that's been abused his whole life. You know, so if you ever see like the videos on YouTube or whatever, you'll see like a dog that, you know, it's out in the streets, and they actually you know, rescue the dog and they bring it back and rehabilitate the dog back. But the dog is very reluctant at first. You know, it doesn't really know. Is this the hand that is going to hurt me? You know, 'cause
the hand that's feeding me now could be the hand that's going to you know, hurt me.
Because when you're a child, I mean, you look up to your parents. Your parents are your role models. You know, so if your parents are abusing you, you know, you're lost. You know, so you basically become a shell of yourself. Yeah, who can you trust? You basically become a shell of yourself. And for me, it was, you know, so basically I would embrace, like, you know, my environment. I would keep, you know, going back to the same situations. I'm like, why am I keep doing this? Why I keep doing this? And when I met Ceandra, I thought she was out of my league. You know, because she had all these accolades, degrees, and all this stuff going for her. You know, at her age,
on the outside,
no kids. Here I am, a guy with 2 kids by 2 different women, and you know, I got all this baggage, and I got all these things going.
And that was my thing. It was like, I'm not gonna date anybody with kids, because my mom was like, don't date anybody with children, because, you know, it's just a lot of headaches that come with it sometimes, you know, when you're dealing with.
Yeah, this is the thing I want to bring out, David, because you said something key, because you were saying, like, I have all this baggage. The thing is, we all have baggage. It's just a matter of who we are going to link arms with to, you know, go through this journey called life, baggage and all. You know, who we're willing to share that baggage with, and who's willing to help us carry that load, and even, you know, kind of dump that load. And so I think you two are the perfect example of how to do that and be transparent and be open and honest. And so you've described some of the difficulties that you've endured on your journey. So what has been or continues to be the secret or the key to your success in continuing to successfully confront, if not conquer, the fear and the anxiety and the depression, and managing it?
I feel like relationships are basically 3 pillars: love, communication, and trust.
Okay.
And sometimes you may lean on the pillar every now and then. For me, to climb out of my depression was love. I loved my wife, you know, and I could tell that my wife wasn't happy. And out of love for my wife, I was like, man, I got to start doing better. I got to start doing this. I got to start doing this. And, you know, we started doing certain things. We do like a report card here.
I was about to say, can you kind of expound on what that is?
We do like a report card, you know, hey, give me 3 things that I'm doing well. Give me 3 things that I can improve upon.
Right.
And so we do that through all the kids. And
how often do you do that?
We go
at least every quarter. We were doing like every month, and then, you know,
it was a bit much.
It was a bit much. So about every quarter or so we do it. Yeah.
You know, because like one thing that, you know,
it's like a partnership.
Yes.
It is.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And, you know, one thing, and a lot of times, you know, they'll say stuff that you may think you're doing really well in, but, you know, you may be, you know, sucking at. And like, you know, like my son was, you know, he told me that I need to spend more time with him, you know, because, you know, basically he's been a single, you know, my focus for him, you know, his whole life.
Right.
You know,
it was all about him. So now he had to share you.
Yeah. You know, 2 kids and a wife in the house, and, you know, so now it's like, oh, I got all these extra people, so he's not the, you know, the primary.
Like to share.
You know, I'm not his primary focus of attention, and his love language is touch and words. You know, so a lot of times he likes to hear it, and you know, he wants to, you know, hug, you know, 4 or 5 times a day,
and tell you I love you like 1,000 times, literally. Like,
But I've noticed that with my kids, especially my older 2, that their love language is basically the same as mine. You know, touch. You know, like I always, you know, with Ceandra, I always tell all the time I love you every single day, because I never got that.
You never experienced that.
You know, my dad never told me he loved me. You know, and it's like now it's like there's this. I had like this void of like, I need
affection.
Just my dad to say I'm proud of you.
Right.
You know, I don't ever recall that. You know, it's like I know I don't need him to fulfill myself, but in the back of my mind, it's like, you know, I wanted him one time to say,
just to say,
son, I'm proud of you. You know, I just like I never had that. Like and it's like almost you gain like this complex. I have like this complex. I gotta be a good dad. You know, not because
because you want to hear that I'm proud of you.
It's not because I want. For me, it's I want to do it because I want to do it. I want to be a good dad because I want to do it. I have to do it, you know. But you know, my complex is I want to be I got to be a good dad because my dad wasn't a good dad, and to break that curse. Not necessarily because I wanted to do it, and you know, and like I said, it's all based on perception. But for me, it bothered me because I felt like I had to do it, not because I wanted to do it. You know, so I feel like...
See, I told David he would do that anyway because that's just who he is as a person. That's who God made him to be. But I know in his head he's thinking, I got to be better than my dad. And you know, your parents...
We do that.
We do. We really do. And most parents, you know, parents that love you, they want you to be better. They want you to have more. You always want your children to have more than you. But I was telling him, like, it's just who you are as a person. His greatest strength is his heart. It's his love, you know, and his love for other people. And so he would do it automatically, even if he tried not to do it. It would be out of the norm for him not to do it. Because it's just a part of his DNA. Yes, exactly.
I wanted to kind of touch on what you just said because you felt in your mind, you said you felt you had to do it because you wanted to be better than your dad. And just even maybe about 6 months ago, I came to the realization and I really had to confront that. A lot of the fear and the depression and anxiety comes from, this was a question that I asked myself. I said, if everything that I'm doing up to this point, am I still at this point trying to gain the approval of my parents, gain the approval of my friends, gain the approval of my colleagues, you know, to have them validate me being enough? And so the pressure of that caused some anxiety and some fear. Like, I don't want to do this wrong. I don't want to say that wrong because then, you know, so there's that pressure to perform or to live up to other people's expectation of who you are. So is that the thing that...
That's huge for me. I know that living up to the other people's expectation. Oh, totally. That's what drives me. Because they say, you know what? You know, my maiden name is Baker. Baker will get it done. Baker will get it. Just call on Baker. And I overachieved. You know, I did what they wanted me to do, but I gave them a little bit extra. You know, just because that's just who I am.
A lot extra. I know you. A lot extra. But yeah, so... the question I wanted to ask, this is just something that came to mind. So do you think one of the contributing factors, or could be, for depression, fear, and anxiety, do you think it could be, along with undisclosed trauma, family genetics? Like, have you had any experience with anybody in your family disclosing?
We're actually doing a spiritual cleansing. Basically, God revealed this to me. Basically, there's... I say about a year and a half ago, I had a dream, and so basically there was this entity. So basically, I was myself in the dream, and there would be like certain people that would come around and basically, you know, bring bad stuff with them, and but it always came in different forms. And so, but in the dream, I was able to look outside the box so I can get like a skyline view, and I was able to see, you know, all right, this is a spirit, you know. So basically, the spirit would go, you know, we'd move, the spirit would go to, you know,
it was a stalker spirit. You know, wherever we went, it would hover and just be there, wherever. You know,
it would go. You know, we moved to, you know, Georgia. It basically come to Georgia in a different.
So it followed you
in different form.
Basically, you're talking about familiar spirits for those that are spiritually in tune.
And so God revealed to me that basically a demon that's on our family, Belial, and you know, so basically I feel like my family has a generational curse. If you look at anybody in my family, both my mom's side and my dad's side, nobody's really doing anything well. Or they did not really have the level of success that they should have. And so I feel like, you know, it needs to stop with me. You know, so we need to do whatever we need to do to stop this. And for me, I've always wanted a girl. You know, I got 3 boys. I've always wanted a girl, but I feel like God gave me boys in order to break this curse, this is, it's just the way, hey, I'm gonna give you boys, we gonna, with you, we're gonna stop this and we're gonna start in fresh, so, and I was like, man, it's power, so I feel like, a lot of times it is passed down, because I battle with pornography, I battle with worthlessness, hopelessness, and I had all these different spirits, and and a lot of that, especially with the porn, my parents were into porn, and so they basically opened these doors that allow these certain entities access to me, and basically I was battling stuff that that my father gave me.
Right. And it was so amazing that David mentions the pornography, because I pray, I'm in the closet, and God showed me that. I didn't know that he was doing that. I've never had any indication, just, totally not knowing.
Right.
And God spoke to me, and he told me to tell David, like, stop the porn. Right. Because if not, it's going to consume you, And when he mentioned that and told me that, I was like, wow. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes you think God isn't listening. You like, God, are you there? You know what I'm saying? Do something now. Right. Show me that you're God. And this next second, I need you to do something now, Right. Show me that miraculous power. And so I knew in that moment, I'm like, okay, even though I may not feel him all the time, though I may think like, is it God really talking to me? Like, if it's not something that I want to have happen, well, that's the devil. You know what I'm saying? Right. But I knew it was God. He was there, and he was speaking. And David would verbalize exactly what, God had told me in my alone time with him.
And so that kind of just fell into, along with the spiritual aspect, the practical aspect of dealing with the fear and the anxiety and the depression. That was just a manifestation of that.
I think a lot of us, even though a lot of people, they turn to substances, as far as alcohol or drugs for their vices,
right?
But I think a lot of us, that people that are depressed, they have vices. Mine was death,
right?
I was into death, so I would use.
When you say you were into death,
as far as I had no reason to live.
Okay.
My only reason to live was my child.
Okay.
So basically, if you took that reason away, I had no reason to live.
Okay.
So to me, I would want to not wake up, when I go to bed, or be driving and just want to drive on oncoming traffic.
Right.
But I never had the guts to do it myself.
Okay. So when you had those moments, how did you deal with that? Because you didn't want to do it yourself, so you just.
It's basically because my son had nobody else.
Right. Right.
So like, so that's kind of what got me through. Then, I started, when I met my wife, it was my love for her that actually brought me out of it.
Okay, that was the catalyst.
Yes.
And I got to say that I let David down in a couple of instances, because he would say, hey, I'm in a dark place. But because I was dealing with my own stuff and felt like I was carrying the weight of the world, family life, everything, and I'd be like, yeah, okay. I really didn't go there with him. I didn't get into a deep conversation, and I know he needed that, or maybe just a hug or a pat on the back or something to say, hey, I'm here with you. It's all going to be okay. But I didn't. I checked out too, because
your own.
Right, and then when he began to kind of describe a little bit more and say, you know what, I want to kill myself. So it began to scare me. And I was like, okay.
That was the reality check.
Exactly.
The reality
exactly.
Call, the wake-up call.
And then even going to him and mentioning, saying, hey, babe, maybe you should go and talk to somebody, not knowing how he was going to receive that.
Yes.
Because a man's ego and all of that. But he was at that place where I'm tired of this. And so he was like, okay. And then, we even had the conversation, like, what if they're going to put you on medication? Because now I'm like really, really researching,
Right.
What if they put you on medication, are you okay? He's like, do you think I have a chemical imbalance? Like, he was already thinking these things as well.
Right.
But now I'm like actually verbalizing it. And he was okay, because he was in that place. It's like, I have to do something.
Where he was ready to receive it. So for both of you, what was one of your darkest moments when dealing with the depression and the fear and the anxiety? And then in sharing that, can you also share how one can overcome their fears and the anxieties and manage and deal with the episodes of depression and anxiety?
For me, I had no sense of purpose. I had no motivation.
Okay.
I had goals, but I had no drive to do them. I wanted to be a good husband, but I had no drive to be a good husband. Mm-hmm. I wanted to, career goals. I had career goals, but I had no drive to do it. Or, work out, lose weight. I had no drive to do it. So for me, it was just that's just that struggle. I was like, why? I want to do it. Like, in my heart, I wanted to do it. Like, I really wanted to do it. I want to be a good husband. I want to do this. But I had no motivation. I had no drive. Mm-hmm. And, it was a thing that, I was basically getting in trouble with the military because I was overweight and I was failing fitness programs. And I knew that, because my wife, she's a stay-at-home mom, so I knew I was the primary breadwinner. Right. And I knew without a shadow of doubt that if I didn't basically, wasn't making the money, my family would be out in the streets. Right. I knew that, but that still wasn't motivation enough. Mm-hmm. For me, it was God. Okay. I never had God in the picture. Okay. I kept asking for happiness, but what I needed was joy. Because happiness is fleeting. That's good. It's a temporary emotion, but joy is everlasting. Wow. So now that, I'm asking for joy. Right. And having joy in my heart.
So that was your moment of epiphany, that, the only difference, the void that you had not, realized or recognized that you had, was the absence of God being in your life. Yes. That's good.
And I've always had God, from a young thing, and then just really getting into my real relationship with God, because I've had a pseudo relationship with God.
You've had a knowledge of, but not really the real
revelation and the relationship.
Yeah.
My deepest, darkest was when I got to the point of I don't care. Right. Within me, getting to a place of I don't care, where you really, really, truly don't care, and you're everyday living with people that you interact with. Mm-hmm. That was a wake up call, because it got to the point where people would knock on my. I couldn't wait for the weekend to come so I could just lay in my pajamas, sometimes not even showering, not even brushing my teeth, combing my hair, nothing, and just laying there, only eating if I had, okay, let me just snack on this or whatever. People knocking on my door and me not answering it. People calling my phone and me not answering it.
All up in my Kool-Aid.
And it's still not talking about it, really, just kind of being within myself.
Right. So how much of your past with fear and depression consuming you like it did play in your decision to have children? And did you have any doubts about what kind of parent you would be? What did you do to reconcile those thoughts? And I ask because as one who deals with depression, I don't want to pass on my past to my children, but I feel a desire to raise children. So how do you reconcile all that? I know that was a lot, but just break it down in small tidbits.
I've always wanted children. Kind of, sort of. Those good kids,
Right.
I did and I didn't. It got to a place, when you're alone for so long, you just begin to ask God, like, make me content with, with this all. Right. And God kind of did a turnaround. So me, in my late 30s, going into my 40s even, God was like, okay, I'm going to bless you with the child. And that was scary, because at that time I was like, I'm okay. And then thinking about all the stuff, and even the things in the world that children have to deal with nowadays, thinking about all that stuff, it's like, okay, I don't want to pass this down to my kid. How can I come back? How can I fight this? And I know what depression, fear, and anxiety is. I know that anxiety, in the Word of God, it tells us in Proverbs 12 and 25, it tells us that anxiety is what brings about depression. And then you'll read another in Philippians chapter 4, it'll say, be anxious for nothing. And this is why the Lord is telling you, don't be anxious for these things, because it can bring on this depression and lead you down this dark road. And so for me, it was like, okay, am I going to really truly trust the Word of God and know that I'm going to be okay as a parent? Because I had to get real with this thing and be truthful with myself. And coming to, I guess, this epiphany, this point, and saying, okay, I'm damned if I do, I'm damned if I don't. Right. So I just got to give my children the best tools that, I can. And knowing what I've been through, share with them. Let them know that they are not alone. That's one thing in my life as a child. When my mom, after I got in trouble and everything, she came because she was wrong. But she came and she apologized to me and said, hey, I was wrong in this instance. And that was the biggest thing for me. So knowing that I can go to my children and let them know, hey, I'm a person just like you. I mess up just like you. They can kind of help get us to the next place. Right, and so even dealing with the depression, the fear and the anxiety, letting my children know because this is an enemy, I think to each, well, not every person, but to most people that tries to go in and tries to rob your life, and knowing that this thing wants to kill you and you have to fight back. And this is how you fight back. And we can do it together. Mommy's been there. Mommy's done that. Right. Now mommy can help you get through this.
That's good stuff. So how do you know if FAD, which we're just going to shorten it as fear, anxiety, depression, is a affecting your children, and you're so concerned that your past could catch up or be passed on to your children. It's fear all over again. So how do you?
For me, that's probably one of my biggest fears.
Okay.
My children.
How do you deal with that?
Dealing with the same stuff I dealt with.
Right.
And we've actually been dealing with my oldest. He's 13, and he basically has a lot of the same hangups, a lot of the same issues that I noticed in myself and his mother, and I was just like, man, so I'm trying to make it to a point where, all right, trying to break those shells down and basically.
Well, I think being able to identify it is half the battle, right? Because now you know what to see, what to look for.
I mean, because you ask them, you ask any child, hey, what you want to be when you grow up? Oh, I want to be a lawyer. I want to be an astronaut or whatever. And most children can come up with some kind of, even if it's far-fetched or not, they have some kind of idea. As with him, it's like, I don't know, somewhere I can make money, or
There's
make
no
money,
drive, no motivation,
make money to play video games. So.
But he says that, he's not depressed. And that's the thing, too. You don't want to exaggerate because these things have happened to you. But you do want to know some of the key signs and some of the takeaways. And you have to know your children. That's why you have to talk to them. And so, when we moved, because everything was so crazy and so quick and so fast, and because we were battling with depression, we just assumed that our kid, too, had to be depressed. Right. And so we had him go and talk to someone. He's a normal, 12, 13-year-old.
Right. So you just dealt with it as it came up.
Yes.
And so I know for some of my listening audience out there, some that are single, they may be thinking like, well, I have these issues that I don't want to deal with or don't want to confront, or I know that I'm dealing with the fad. And how is another person going to want to be able to take that journey with me? Do I disclose that to them? So I see for you two as a married couple, I can hear the love that you have for each other and the respect you have for each other as you both are transparent about your fad. So what can you suggest to my listening audience, or as your fiance and you are about to take that step, if they were in that, in your shoes? You both have issues, even with you coming from some really dark places in your past. So what would you say to that couple or to that person?
At the end of the day, nobody's perfect.
Right.
Everybody has their own hangups. Everybody has their own problems. It's all basically all in what you're willing to deal with.
Right.
So.
And we touched on that earlier.
Yes. Yeah. It's all in what you're willing to deal with. Some people, I like to think of love as three different, things. I want you, I need you, I care for you. So basically, a need and a want is basically something that I need something from you, and you give it to me. It's not something that I generally pass on as far as like a care. If you generally care somebody, you just do. Somebody's out in the street, you give them money. But need and want, once that need and want goes away, you have nothing left. So a lot of times people, when they get away from that need and want, their love is gone. Okay. They had nothing to fall back on. Whereas Ceandra, I legitimately love her. And I love her,
and that's evident, yes.
I love her, like, I think of the most purest love is the love of God,
right,
and the love for a child,
right.
So how we love our children, a lot of times we don't love our mates,
significant others,
our mates or our spouses the same way. We love them based on conditions. And love with conditions, not love. So basically, if he doesn't take the trash out, well, I'm mad at him. I don't love him anymore. Or if he doesn't do this, I don't love him anymore. But that's not true love. Corinthians basically spells it out for us. If we can follow that, that's genuine love.
Right. That's good.
I think that, telling that single person, because I've been there as well, and letting them know that if you feel that you can't be totally transparent with the person and truly trust the person, then maybe you shouldn't share. Right. But you're going to have to come to some point in your life where you're going to have to be like, you know what? I got to tell somebody. And that somebody just may be, a therapist, a close friend, somebody, to God, because I went to God first, know. Right. But then we as human beings, God put us here for one another. Right. So you have to have that, I call it a physical, real person, that you got to have a tangible example is what I call it. And so you got to be able to be honest and clear with that fiance, that boyfriend, girlfriend, what have you, and let them truly know what's in your heart.
Right. So before, thank you for sharing that. So before I ask you all to just kind of summarize it or wrap it up, I wanted to ask you one more question from a listening audience perspective.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you ever totally conquer these issues around fear and depression, because I'm battling it every single day. So how do you deal with the triggers? How do you two deal with the triggers that may cause your fat issues to manifest, you two as a couple?
Mm-hmm. Well, knowing the triggers, that's the first key. Knowing the triggers and really being honest with yourself about what those triggers are. Because when I was speaking with my therapist, they were telling me some things and I was like, no, that's not it. It's this, it's that. No, it's this, it's that. I feel this way because when I initially went to go see my therapist, it was because I had hit my head and suffered a head injury and I couldn't think straight. I couldn't get my thoughts and all that stuff together. And so I was like, yeah, I'm anxiety. Yeah, I'm anxious. I'm mad because I hit my head. I'm in pain or whatever. But at the end of the day, it was truly knowing what my triggers were. And so they were able to help me figure that out. Right. And as David and I, just being transparent and open with each other, we were able to say, okay, whatever that is, we're going to be there regardless, no matter what. I'm in it to win it. I got your back. I'm your body, to your client, all that kind of stuff.
That's good stuff.
And that's like, not taking sides. A lot of times when people fight, they're trying to get the best of each other and not doing that. Right. You love this person and, you're trying to, if you truly love this person, you're trying to, you're not trying to basically take advantage of that person, so.
Yes. And I knew David was not taking advantage of me. Not doing that.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, the love, you can definitely see the love that you two share, even with battling with your own individual issues, how you've been able to come together as a family unit to deal with those issues. So I wanted you to let my listening audience know how to support your cause, what you're doing, how they can reach out to you, how they can connect with you, and then give them a takeaway or a call to action.
Okay. So as I told you guys kind of earlier in the show, we have a business called Inspire for Purpose. Mm-hmm. And so you can get us at www.inspire4, that's F-O-R, purpose.com or .org. You can get us. You can also get us via phone at 386-222-2872 for those that want to chat with us on the phone. Right. And then also we're on Facebook as well. So those are the different avenues in which you can take. And what the organization is basically about is basically getting people clear, because for so long I wasn't clear. I didn't know what I wanted to do, what I needed to do. And once I got kind of into it, it was like, well, how do I do it now?
Right, right.
So we give people the tools and the resources. We're equipped to, impart, we impart resources to help the vision of another. That's also in common with our nonprofit Extended Hands Worldwide Ministries. And so those are the ways that you can actually get in contact with us. And so if you need help, we have lifestyle coaches of different genres, whether it's finance, whether it's spiritual, emotional, whatever the case may be. And so you can contact us. We now live in Georgia, so we're Eastern time. We're here in Jacksonville Eastern time. But like I said, the World Wide Web, we're there 24/7. So definitely reach out to us. We're happy to help in any area that we can.
Awesome. Good deal. So thank you guys for coming and sharing and being so transparent. So we've been talking about today battling with fear, anxiety, and depression. And so in a nutshell, I just want to kind of expound and wrap it up. In dealing with that, the one thing is of course, being transparent. What I wanted to point out is to give my listening audience some nuggets, just as David was talking about. How do you deal with that? How did you two deal with it? And he said there were 3 pillars. That's love, that's communication, and that's trust, and also having a sense of purpose. And I think that is so important to share, with anyone that's dealing with fat, is those 3 pillars. I mean, you just summed it up in a nutshell. Yeah. And so I so appreciate your candor and your transparency. And so for my listening audience, you have heard it from the dynamic duo, Miss Ceandra and David Dilley, and I probably said that backwards. But you've heard it here, folks. So I want to let you know that you've been listening to Michelle Speaks with me, your host, Michelle Portier. And we've been talking about a very, very taboo topic, battling with fear, anxiety, and depression. I just want to thank you guys so much again for just being so transparent, sharing with our audience, your testimony, your experience, and your insight on how we can all learn to cope with our fat individually and collectively as a family unit. So tune into us every Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time All of our shows are available in our podcast directory for free 24/7 by going to the 180radionow.com/podcast or click the podcast link in the menu on the homepage. Click the Michelle Speaks logo and you can access all of our previously aired shows. Download the 180 Radio Now app on Google Play and Apple App Store. You can also listen directly on the 180radionow.com website by clicking the Listen Live button at the top of the homepage. Also, listen through your web browser on every major internet radio directory: iTunes, Radio, TuneIn, Radio.com, Streama, Screamer Radio, and more. It is our sincere prayer that what you've heard today has blessed you and provided you with information you can use to help you in your situation or someone else's. Tune in again as we get to the heart of the matter, because if you hide it, you can't heal it.